There's a habit that almost every working adult has, and it feels so normal, so harmless, that nobody ever questions it. It's not a vice. It's not even technically a mistake. It's just a pattern baked into how you receive your paycheck and what you do in the first 48 hours after it lands. And that pattern alone might be the single biggest reason your savings account isn't growing the way it should. My name is Trinity, and I think about money psychology more than most people think is healthy. Today, we're talking about a habit so invisible that most people don't even register it as a decision. By the end of this video, you'll never look at payday the same way again. Hit subscribe if you want to keep uncovering the patterns hiding in plain sight in your financial life. And give this video a like if you catch yourself doing exactly what I'm about to describe. Here's the habit. Your paycheck lands in your checking account, and your brain immediately treats the entire balance as spendable, not because you decided that consciously, because of how the money arrived. It showed up in your everyday account, the same account you use for coffee, for gas, for the grocery run, for the impulse purchase you didn't plan. And the moment money enters that account, your brain stops seeing it as income to be allocated and starts seeing it as money currently available. This single psychological shift, the merging of income and spending in the same mental and physical space, is quietly responsible for more lost savings than almost any other financial behavior. It's not about how much you earn. It's about where that money physically and mentally sits the moment you receive it. Let me show you why this matters so much more than people realize. Behavioral economists call this mental accounting, the idea that we treat money differently, depending on which mental bucket we assign it to, even though a dollar is a dollar no matter where it sits. When your paycheck drops into your main checking account, every dollar gets assigned by default to the bucket labeled Available Now. There's no friction, no pause, no moment where your brain asks whether this dollar should go somewhere else first. The bills get paid automatically. The rest just sits there, technically unassigned, but functionally treated as fair game. And here's the part that should genuinely concern you. Studies on spending behavior consistently show that money sitting in a checking account gets spent at dramatically higher rates than money that's been moved, even briefly, into a separate account. The mere act of money changing location changes how willing you are to spend it. Think about your own payday ritual, because you almost certainly have one, even if you've never named it as a ritual. The check lands. Maybe you check the balance, feel a brief sense of relief or accomplishment. Maybe you order food that night because, hey, payday. Maybe you finally buy the thing you've been eyeing for 2 weeks because now you have the money. None of these decisions feel reckless in the moment. They feel earned. You worked. The money showed up. Why shouldn't some of it go towards something that makes you feel good? But here's the problem. This pattern repeats every single pay period, year after year, and the cumulative effect is staggering. If you're consistently treating your entire paycheck as available before you've made a single intentional decision about where it should go, you're not budgeting. You're reacting. And reacting, repeated over hundreds of pay periods across a career, is how people with decent incomes end up with minimal savings. Here's a number that should make this uncomfortably real. The median American household has less than $5,000 in their checking and savings accounts combined, despite a median household income well above $70,000 annually. That gap isn't explained by income. It's explained by what happens to money in the hours and days after it arrives. Every dollar that sits in your everyday account without a designated purpose is a dollar exposed to what I call ambient spending, the slow, often invisible leakage of money toward things you didn't plan to buy, justified in the moment by the simple fact that the money was sitting right there, accessible, with your name on it. Now, here's where this gets specifically dangerous, because direct deposit, the very convenience that was supposed to make our financial lives easier, has actually made this habit worse, not better. Before direct deposit became the default, people physically held checks. There was a built-in pause, a trip to the bank, a moment of friction between receiving money and accessing it. That friction, small as it was, created space for intentional decisions. Direct deposit removed that pause entirely. Now the money simply appears, already liquid, already spendable, with zero friction between earning it and using it. We traded a small inconvenience for a massive psychological cost, and almost nobody noticed the trade happening. So what actually breaks this pattern? It's not about earning more, and it's not about willpower, because willpower is a finite resource that runs out, especially after a long week when your brain is already tired of making decisions. The fix is structural. not motivational. The single most effective habit you can build is creating physical and digital separation between the moment money arrives and the moment it becomes spendable. This means setting up automatic transfers that move money out of your checking account within minutes or hours of your paycheck landing, not weeks later when willpower has already been tested repeatedly. If your paycheck arrives on Friday morning, the money for savings, investing, and bills should already be gone by Friday afternoon, before a single discretionary decision gets made. Let's talk about why this works so well psychologically. Once money is gone from your checking account, your brain stops including it in your mental math for what I have available to spend. This isn't about hiding money from yourself in some complicated way. It's about removing the visibility that triggers ambient spending in the first place. People who automate this separation consistently report that they stop missing the money almost immediately, usually within 1 or 2 pay cycles, because their spending naturally adjusts to whatever remains visible and accessible. The brain adapts to whatever the new available number is, whether that's the full paycheck or 60% of it. Here's a real comparison that shows how powerful this shift actually is. Imagine 2 people earning the identical salary, $60,000 a year. Person 1 keeps their entire paycheck in one checking account and manually tries to save whatever's left at the end of the month. Person 2 automatically routes 20% of every paycheck into a separate savings and investment account the moment it arrives, then lives entirely off the remaining 80% without thinking twice about it. After 5 years, assuming modest investment returns, Person 2 has tens of thousands of dollars more saved, not because they earned more or wanted to save more intensely, but because the friction of withdrawal protected the money that the friction of willpower never could. Person 1, meanwhile, often finds themselves with surprisingly little saved, despite genuinely intending to save whatever's left, because there's rarely anything meaningfully left when every dollar starts in the same accessible bucket. There's a deeper reason this paycheck habit is so dangerous, and it has to do with how it compounds over an entire working life, not just a single year. Every pay period where money sits fully exposed in your checking account is a missed opportunity for that money to start growing instead of sitting idle or quietly disappearing into unplanned purchases. Over a 40-year career, the difference between automatically protecting 20% of every paycheck versus manually trying to save whatever happens to be left can mean the difference between retiring with financial security and working well into your 70s out of necessity rather than choice. This isn't an exaggeration. It's simple math applied to a behavioral pattern most people never examine. Let's address the obvious objection, because I know some of you are thinking it right now. What if there isn't 20% left to automate? What if the paycheck barely covers expenses as it is? This is a real and valid concern, and the answer isn't to force an unrealistic percentage that sets you up to fail and abandon the habit within a month. The answer is to start with whatever percentage feels almost uncomfortably small, even 5%, and let the structural separation do the psychological work regardless of the size. The goal isn't to immediately save a dramatic amount. The goal is to break the mental pattern that treats 100% of your paycheck as available the moment it lands. Once that pattern is broken, even at a small percentage, increasing the amount over time becomes dramatically easier because you've already proven to yourself that you can live on slightly less than the full deposit. Here's something else worth mentioning, because it's the part most personal finance advice conveniently skips. This habit isn't just about savings accounts and investment accounts. It applies to literally any financial goal you're trying to protect from your own ambient spending. Saving for a house down payment, building an emergency fund, setting aside money for a future business. Any of these goals gets dramatically easier to achieve the moment you remove the money from your visible, spendable checking balance immediately upon arrival, rather than hoping willpower holds out until the end of the month. I want to leave you with the single most important reframe from this entire video. Stop thinking of your paycheck as one number that represents money you now have access to. Start thinking of your paycheck as several smaller numbers that each have a specific destination, decided before the money ever lands, not after. The version of you who decides in advance where money goes will always outperform the version of you who tries to decide after the money is already sitting there, visible, accessible, and quietly inviting you to spend it. This one shift, moving the decision earlier and removing the friction-free access that direct deposit accidentally created, is responsible for more long-term wealth building than almost any investment strategy, side hustle, or budgeting app you could adopt. The habit was never really about discipline. It was about timing and structure the entire time. If this changed how you think about your own payday ritual, drop a like, because that means it's working exactly the way it's supposed to. Subscribe if you want to keep uncovering the quiet financial habits that are shaping your life without your permission. I'll see you in the next one.